Hello everyone, MSF Paulo P13 here, and welcome to today's video. Today's video is another Raid Ranks breakdown, and it is on a different class. Today I am talking about Protectors. So, as you can probably see, a first chunk of them are a little bit underwhelming, and then we get more interesting as we go along. So, I'm going to start just clumping them into groups that I feel are reasonable for both comparative basis and just overall discussion and speed of the video, because I don't want it to go on too long. Anyways, let's start it off here with a couple of characters. First off, we have Hydra Armored Guard. He is slow. He has a taunt. There's really not much to his kit. Again, just extra max health. There's not much to talk about. He's not very good. And I think that'll be very reflective in a couple of seconds when I start talking about his ranks. Next, we have Aim Security. Again, not a very good kit. Like, taunt has a healing effect, but also and gives slow, which is actually not that bad on a tank. But again, just not the best of tanks. And finally, we have Ravager Bruiser, who is a very interesting protector on the fact that the taunt is only actually a chance to taunt. Here, look, 30, 50, 70% chance at like 60% at level 6. You don't actually have a guaranteed taunt anywhere, which is really, really weird when you're talking about a tank, especially considering the second move doesn't even have an attack. It's just a self-heal and defense up. It's really weird character. Okay, so how do these three characters, Ravager Bruiser, Aim Security, and Hydra Armored Guard, do in raids? Okay, so you can see, if you take a look down at the bottom, on the general raid ranks, here's what we have. We have Ravager Bruiser, and we have Aim Security down in a basic no tier, and Hydra Armor Guard is a step above them in special no tier. The reason is just they're all really bad, but I deem Hydra Armor Guard just a little bit better than Aim Security, and Ravager Bruiser is just not in the conversation. He's horrendous. He does not provide any protection to the team, just himself, and it's not really good for a raid for everyone to die but your tank. So I deemed Hydra Armor Guard slightly better than the others. But again, he's pretty bad too. Don't use any of these characters in raids, especially generally. You encounter their synergy, and Hydra Armor Guard joins them down below, because with synergy, he's even more underwhelming. All three of these characters are really bad, and they're really bad for raids. And a suicide node, I would be shocked if you could actually find a use for any of these characters on a suicide node. They won't even help take down one node. There is very, very, very little use to ever use any of these three protectors in a raid. Okay, I'm going to do another group of three characters here, starting off with Sentry. He's a bit of a unique take on a protector or a tank because he doesn't actually have a taunt. He takes the focus of the damage by putting everybody else in stealth and gives them evades, which is pretty cool. Those evades are very helpful, and many people consider him the best minion in the game. I don't know if I'd consider him the best minion in the game overall, but he's definitely a very good minion and very useful. I don't have mine very powerful, but anyways. Next, we have Mercenary Riot Guard. He's a little slow, does some okay damage, and gives defense up to the rest of the team, and has his taunt available really rapidly as it's very low ability cost, as you can see here, which is very nice. Again, there's no defense up from Sentry, so you're basically protected by the stealths and evades. Here's some defense up for everybody. And now we have Shield Security, who is another interesting take on a tank. That's a hard thing to say. He doesn't actually have a taunt built into any of his moves. However, if any one of his allies falls below 50%, he taunts, and then he's a pain in the butt because he has a high block chance, works really well on a whole Fury Shield team, and actually does some amazing damage. Anyways, let's see how these three characters do in raids. Okay, now if you just put these characters into a random team, I put both Sentry and Mercenary Riot Guard as special why not tier, because they provide survivability for the other characters. Mercenary Riot Guards is actually a little more lasting because it's defense up, so even if something happens and his taunt is taken away, they're protected. Sentry protects them for one attack each because they have evade. So if you get them out of stealth, say with, I don't know, Mystique's special or something along the lines of that, then they still at least have the evade to protect them. So there's two levels of protection there for both of them. Shield security on his own on a random team, it's good because you get the taunt every time someone drops below 50%, but you're not really protecting them other than that. And he does have a nice stun and he does some pretty good offense, but I guess for this role, if you're just putting him in a random team, there are just better characters for raids. So, but he's still very good as a basic why not. All of these characters work well if you drop them in a team. Now if you count their synergy, Hand Sentry and Mercenary Riot Guard don't change at all because they don't really have specific synergies. I guess you can now consider Mercenary Riot Guard having some synergy with Killmonger, but I'm sure there's going to be some better synergies there than Mercenary Riot Guard. And Shield Security moves all the way up to Ultimate, yes, and I'm pretty sure you know why. Fury Shield. Shield Security is a huge part of that. So again, he moves up to the very top. Now for Suicide teams, Mercenary Riot Guard takes a bit of a fall back, and Hand Sentry takes even bigger fall back. So Mercenary Riot Guard's an ultimate Y, and Hand Sentry is a basic Y. The reason is that defense up just is a little bit more useful than the stealth and evades for a suicide type node. It just helps out a little bit more, in my opinion, for that quick, we need to take down this one node high damage type situation. Now Shield Security actually is a basic why not, so he's a step above either of them because he actually does some pretty good damage, and that taunt with 50%, even if it's sacrificing himself, is pretty good for one node situations. Okay, this character is an interesting character, and I believe he deserves to be talked about on his own. Kingpin. Okay, so his basic is just a normal attack with a chance of assist. His special, he summons people that taunt. So he doesn't actually have a taunt, but he summons taunters, but they die really easily. His ultimate, he gives offense up and defense up to all his allies, and just some other interesting parts of his kit. But so he's not a typical protector in that sense, but he can be quite useful and has a good synergy for a lot of people that have some AoEs. However, he is very slow. So how does this really translate into raids? Okay, you can see here I rank Kingpin as a basic why not. In other words, he's a good character to use, but there are definitely better options. He's just a little too slow for my liking just to put into a random team, but it can be very helpful to take nodes down faster if you're relying on some second turn AoEs. Now, if you count synergy, I don't think anything really changes because his whole kit really is a little bit of synergy with everyone. There's nothing very specific that you can really do to make him better for raids. Now, for a suicide team, he takes a big step up, all the way to a basic, yes. The reason for this is because he really can help with a tech team or something similar to that, where you get that quick offense up, and they just destroy a team with all their big attacks that have been charged up and saved up for that node. So Kingpin really isn't a typical raid character, can be used, but it's best if you're using it for one-off nodes where you just really need to take it down quick. Okay, here's a minion that I'm going to talk about on his own because he's kind of a little bit different and he doesn't really fit with the next group of characters, so I'll just make him quick. Pretty fast, defense up when he taunts. Now he gives himself defense up, which is nice. He used to just heal himself. He's been buffed recently, but anyways, gets defense up, a slight heal when he taunts. It's pretty fast. That's really all you need to know. He also gives defense up to all Kree allies. Only Kree, important thing. He also has a chance to generate ability energy to a random Kree when he's attacked when taunting. So an interesting little kit here. Okay, that's not what I meant to do. So sorry about that. Alright, what's going on? Sorry about that. Anyways, let's get back to the video here. Where is Kree Royal Guard? You can see him all the way as an ultimate why not on his own. And that's just because he is fast and it's a very quick recharge on his taunt. So maybe you can make an argument that he only should be a special why not because he doesn't give defense up to all allies, and I could understand that. But I think with just his rapid firing defense up and healing himself, he can really take a whole lot of damage for his team. So I think that's a really good character for a raid. Anyways, now if you count synergy, he's very good with synergy. I mean, he doesn't actually move up, but theoretically he does become a better character because all the characters are better with synergy. But he really holds his own. That Kree team works very well with him on a raid. because he gives them defense up, and the ability energy that's flying around, he can taunt even more. Now, for a suicide team, he doesn't do as well. He falls all the way down to a basic why not, because, yeah, he's fast and gets the taunt up quick, but he doesn't really help enough on the offensive end to really make it worth it, or enough protecting all the other characters that you'd likely use on a suicide team, because Kree isn't the best suicide team options around. Okay, so now I'm going to do 3 named character tanks in a row here, and they feel right to group together because they're very comparative to each other in what they do well and what they don't do well. Speaking of not doing well, here we have Hulk. Hulk should be a very good character in this game, but unfortunately he is just too slow. He doesn't give defense up, or doesn't really give any help to the other characters, and his taunt is very easily removed due to his really low resistance. And it's an issue. I believe he needs a strong rework, and I've actually made a video on that if you want to go check that out. That's awesome. Anyways, he just is slow and doesn't do anything. Deals some okay damage, but not a very good protector, and that's what we're talking about here. Now we have Drax. Drax is a bit of an interesting character. He's the only character in the game to start with a taunt. It can be very annoying to face, and that can be really big on certain nodes for a raid, so maybe that's a little more interesting. He also has some drain on his attacks, which means he heals himself. And he also does get defense up when he taunts and counter, and that really does help him with survivability. So now we move on to Luke Cage, another character who gives defense up to everyone. The interesting part about Luke Cage's kit is his first turn he will likely use his ultimate, which gives defense up to all the other characters, and then he will use his special, which is the taunt. So he protects them in 2 separate ways, and if you get it high enough, the defense up is actually for 2 turns, so he will have defense up when taunting. If you don't have it all the way up, like I don't, he will not have defense up when he's taunting, and that can be a bit of a problem. So how does this all translate to raids? First off, you can see the Hulk all the way at the bottom, worst tier, basic no. If you just throw him on a team, he should not be there for a raid. He's too slow, doesn't protect the team enough. Then you have Luke Cage on his own as a special why not. That's because he does provide defense up to the other characters, which is good, and then he has a taunt. However, he's a little slow and doesn't have quite enough ability energy for it to be as long going on a team like this. And then you have Drax. He's up as an ultimate why not. I find him better just because he starts with a tank, or he starts with a taunt, and he's the only one that does that, which is very unique. So if you go into a node where you're going to hit hard really fast, like a rocket or something like that, it's great that it's automatically going into Drax. And I think that really puts him above Luke Cage in this instance. Now, if you're talking about with synergy, Hulk still at the very bottom. Drax doesn't move because, yes, he has synergy with Guardians, and just he's more specific use. His synergy isn't as impressive as Luke Cage's synergy, which moves him up to a basic yes. What is that synergy, you may ask? Defenders. He works amazing with the defenders as he is a defender. So he really is good on that team, and that is a good raid team, so he definitely moves up with synergy. Now we account suicide team. Hulk is still bad, bottom, don't use him. Luke Cage is a special Y, you really should not use him either. Drax is really the only character out of these that makes sense to use on a suicide node, and that's because that's for the same reason I talked about earlier. So I have him as a special why not, just because maybe you have 4 really offensive guys and you need to protect them right off the bat, so you throw Drax in there to basically sacrifice himself for those other 4 characters. So that's really how they work in raids. I would say Drax is the best of these options, unless you're going a full defenders team, then Luke Cage. Okay, as you know, I've been going from actually the bottom of my roster to the top. I'm actually going to skip a character here, because I want to group 2 sets of characters together. So first off, we're going to start off with 2 unconventional protectors. We have Crossbones here, and skipping Captain America, we're going to talk about Juggernaut. So let's start off with Crossbones. What do you need to know about Crossbones? Well, his basic gives offense down, that's okay. He gives a taunt that heals himself, but why do you have Crossbones on a team? It's his ultimate, that detonate, that explosion, huge damage, but it also damages himself. So you really don't want to use his taunt in most situations, because you want him to survive to use that ultimate. You don't want the damage coming to him. So that's really odd for a tank. Now we go to Juggernaut. Same general idea. He has a taunt, and if he's with Brotherhood, he has 2-turn taunt. He actually does some pretty good damage. His basic hits hard, and his ultimate, when fully charged, hits incredible to basic and adjacent targets. Difference here is Juggernaut does not damage himself by doing this, and he has a really, really insanely high resistance, which is great. When he first came out, he didn't, but they realized that was an issue, and they made it a lot higher. So those are two very unconventional tanks, but how do they translate in raids? Okay, so here's what we have. We have Crossbones. I rank him as an ultimate Y, and Juggernaut as an ultimate Y not. What's the difference? Well, Crossbones isn't really protecting your team like he should be, because he's basically just a big exploding bomb. So it doesn't really help protect the rest of your team like a protector should, but it does do some good damage, but he's damaging himself, so that's not really good for a long-lasting game mode like Raid. While Juggernaut actually gives himself some regen when he does it, puts defense up, gets himself a lot of buffs, so he is really surviving. And his ultimate does damage, but he doesn't hurt himself by doing that. And he protects the rest of the team because it's so hard to get rid of that taunt. Now, if you count Synergy, this gets even more interesting because nothing happens to Crossbones. He stays the same. There really isn't Synergy that makes him any better in raids. And if you use Juggernaut on a Synergy team, he's worse for raids because he probably is going to need someone to heal him and work with him in long-lasting ways. And if you put Juggernaut on a team he has Synergy with, that's the Brotherhood. And the Brotherhood is not very good in long-lasting game modes because they are quick offense, burn another team to the ground team. So Juggernaut actually gets hurt by that, moving down to a special why not. If you count suicide teams, though, like I said, Juggernaut goes on Brotherhood, which is quick burn him to the ground, full offense team. So he moves up with the Brotherhood as a suicide option for an ultimate yes. Really, really good for that situation. And Crossbones also gets a huge jump up as a special yes. Not quite as good because a tech team is good for suicide nodes, but not quite as good as the Brotherhood. So he's just a step behind. So these two tanks, Juggernaut does work in raids on his own, but honestly, both of these tanks are better used as offensive weapons, so they're good for suicide nodes. Okay, now I have two last tanks to talk about, and they're both very interesting, and they are a big part of a heated debate on who is the best tank in the game. So I am talking first off about Captain America. The traditional, the original, some consider it the best or second or third best character in the game for a long time. The leader of the Avengers. Sorry, Iron Man, I know you're the legendary character, but Captain America is what makes that team work. He is considered by many a great character, so why is that? His block chance is incredible. He gives defense up to 10 allies. He has a Dispel, gives ability energy to other Avengers and to some random allies, and that's really helpful. And for a long time, that made him untouchable in this game. But now we have Thanos. Here's what Thanos is. He has a taunt, but he doesn't give defense up to anyone else on his team or himself, but it is 2 turns. And also his taunt is an attack, and it's actually some pretty good single target damage. His basic is okay, and his ultimate is actually very nice. It is a big AoE attack that does 100% drain damage. This means all the damage that he does to all of the other enemies goes back to his health bar, which is very nice. But if it was just that, I wouldn't consider him as highly as I do now. That goes down to his passive. The way his passive works now is every time any enemy dies, he generates 2 ability energy per dead enemy to himself or adjacent cosmic allies. And nowadays, in the game, there's some amazing cosmic allies to put next to him. So, for instance, if you have someone like Rocket, you can just put Thanos next to Rocket, and every time Rocket ults, and let's say Rocket kills 2 characters, that's 4 ability energy, which is enough to get Rocket charged up to use his ultimate next turn again. So how does this really translate into raids? Well, if you just put them on their own, what I say is Captain America is an ultimate why not. If you go back a few months, he was the right choice in pretty much every situation, even though I generally went the Thanos route. Captain America is great. The reason he's not as high, as he isn't higher, is the Avengers themselves have fallen off due to the buffs to all the other characters and all the other teams just getting better. So he hasn't really gotten worse, but other characters have just gotten better. A little bit of power creep, and I think that hurt him a little bit more than people realize. And Thanos I have as a special yes, even on his own, because he can heal himself up. And his synergy is a little open-ended, so you don't have to build specific teams, so it's easier to just randomly put him down into a team that he works well with. So I think that benefits him even more, and that is why he is a special yes versus Captain America as an ultimate why not. Now you count synergy, and it becomes even more apparent. Captain America does move up a spot to a basic yes, because you can put him with Black Widow, which gives him speed up, can make the whole team fast, and there's some nice things you can do with the defense up. But you put Thanos with synergy, he becomes even better as an ultimate yes. As some of you may have seen my recent raid videos going through the entire Ultimus lane of that team at about 160, 170,000 power hits like a 200,000 power team of many other variations. If you put a Rocket next to a Thanos, you put a Star-Lord on that team, you give Groot for some added defense, and a Minerva for some healing, that team is just insane for raids. Like, I am shocked by how good it does. So that synergy there moves Thanos up to the very top. Now, Suicide team-wise, I think pretty much all tanks, other than Crossbones and Juggernaut, fall down a little. But Captain America's hurt a little bit more than Thanos. He falls to a special why not, while Thanos falls to a basic yes. The reason there, again, is Thanos does some pretty good damage on his own, and he does funnel energy pretty well. So, really, if you ask me, the best tank in the game for raids is Thanos, and Captain America puts up one heck of a show. And these are the protectors in the game, and this is why I rank them where they do in raids. You may not agree with every one of them. Let me know about that in the comments. You can also join a Discord down in the video description. There's a link to that where you can ask me questions about this and talk about this, or let me know what you disagree about. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you like this, or if you don't, because there's plenty more content coming your way. There's also a link to a Patreon and a Tippy down in the video description. Really hope you guys enjoyed this, and as always, I'm here to help.